Al-Ghazali is famously known to have clashed with the philosophers. Some people even claim that he is the reason that philosophy and rational sciences died in the Islamic world. Welcome to our series in which we cover the Incoherence of Philosophers by Al-Ghazali. Before we continue, I highly recommend watching the previous episode of the series. In our previous video, we introduced the author Al-Ghazali and we also covered his introduction, meaning Al-Ghazali's own introduction to the book. We will be continuing the introduction and hopefully finish it off in this episode. Al-Ghazali in his introduction mentions that the aim is to refute the principles or at least what is thought to be the principle and philosophy of Aristotle, and mainly how it is interpreted by Al-Farabi and Ibn Sīnā. It is very important to keep in mind that this is what Al-Ghazali himself mentions is the aim of this book, Tahafut Falasifa, meaning this is not a book to refute philosophy as such. Rather, it is to refute the specific philosophers. And as he has mentioned that he will be refuting such individuals and their doctrines, it is very important to understand what kinds of doctrines they had, meaning what kinds they had and what should be refuted. So Al-Ghazali further on in his introduction mentions that there are three kinds of doctrines held by the philosophers. The first kind are purely verbal disputes. Example, when some of the philosophers claim that God is a substance or a johar. Now, some of you theologically inclined individuals might have heard of the word johar or johar fard. In theology or kalam, this word is used to refer to an indivisible substance or a metaphysical symbol. I won't be diving too deep in what that means, but rather what Imam Al-Ghazali is trying to say. He is saying that the philosophers claim that God is a johar, meaning that the philosopher claimed that the God is the johar, but what do they mean by this? Imam Al-Ghazali is pointing out that this is a verbal dispute, not a dispute in meaning. Because even though, according to the theologians, the word johar means something that is contained in space. But for the philosophers, and what they intended to mean was something that is self-subsistent or something that is independent in a way. You can clearly see that the intended meaning of the philosophers is in line with what the Muslims believe, meaning something that is independent and true, that God is independent of everything. Imam Al-Ghazali mentions after that even though this dispute is in meaning, the legality of using such a word or uttering such a word is a matter of fiqh, a matter of jurisprudence or Islamic law. Basically saying that utterance of a word might be permissible or impermissible, such as if someone says that the word johar for God or substance for God, it may be impermissible, but declaring it to be impermissible is a matter of fiqh or jurisprudence or Islamic law, not a matter of theological refutation or dispute. The matter of theological debate and refutation is what is intended by the proponent or what is meant by the proponent. For example, if a Muslim says that I believe in XYZ and another Muslim says that he believes in ABC, but they both intend the same meaning, the debate will be on if it is correct to use such words rather than if it is correct to believe in what you intend to believe. Second kind of dispute that Al-Ghazali mentions is where the philosophers do not clash with religion. And this is, I love this point that Al-Ghazali makes. He gives multiple examples, but I will be mentioning one. The solar eclipse, he gives the example of a solar eclipse. According to the philosophers, a solar eclipse is the presence of a lunar orb between the observer and the sun. Between the observer and the sun. Al-Ghazali mentions that we don't need to go into refuting these kind of beliefs or these kinds of understandings. Why? He gives two reasons. One, that it serves no purpose at all. And two, which I want to highlight, And this is where people misunderstand Al-Ghazali. The second reason he gives is that refuting such claims would actually harm Islam. Why is that the case? Because such claims are matters of demonstration. Al-Ghazali is pretty much saying that some of the claims of the philosophers are proven by demonstration, reason, and here he mentions by mathematics and geometry, meaning the solar eclipse and their explanation of it is a matter of truth and fact. And refuting such will only harm the religion. Now this is very interesting because a lot of people claim that Al-Ghazali refuted the philosophers and he killed science and he killed rational thinking and he said that math is the work of the devil. But here you can clearly see Al-Ghazali is saying that we should not be refuting such claims. In theological discussion, we shouldn't be refuting such claims because such claims are matter of demonstration, of 100% certainty. Refuting such claims actually harms the religion. Now, how does it harm the religion? The harm is inflicted on the religion by those who defend the religion by saying which is not proper, meaning they claim that such thing contradicts Islam. If someone says that 2 plus 2 is 4 and we have proven it that 2 plus 2 is 4 and some random guy comes up and says, wait, no, that actually proves Islam is false. Sorry, let's go back. If someone says 2 plus 2 is 4 and some guy, random guy comes up and says, no, that actually contradicts Islam, what will end up happening? People will actually end up doubting Islam, not the fact that 2 plus 2 is 4, because it is something so certain. Because of the fact that it is something so certain, and then someone comes up and says that it contradicts Islam, it means that Islam contradicts a fact, a proven thing, which will only prove that the thing that it is contradicting with is true and that Islam will become false. Al-Ghazali says that this is just wrong. This is straight up wrong. This just destroys the people who say that Al-Ghazali was against science, against reasoning, against rationality, against philosophy. He's clearly saying you should not be refuting this in these discussion and these debates and these theological back and forth. We need to understand that Al-Ghazali brings forth an argument, he expects a counter argument, and then he answers that as well. So here he does do that. If it is said that God's messenger, may peace and blessing be upon him, said, the sun and the moon are two of God's signs, and that are eclipsed neither for the death nor the life of anyone. Should you witness such, then hasten to the remembrance of God and prayer. How then does this agree with what the philosophers have said? Now if someone makes this claim that this is the hadith, how is it in line with what the philosophers have said? God has said that this happens not for anyone's life or death, and the philosophers are saying that it happens for this reason, and they give an explanation. Then Al-Ghazali just answered it very simply. There is nothing in that contradicts what they have stated, since there is nothing in it except the denial of the occurrence of the eclipse for the death or life of anyone, and the command to pray when it occurs. Meaning, the hadith doesn't mention anything other than the negation, the denial that it happens for anyone's death or life. That's all. And then further ahead, it commands to pray. What the philosophers state here doesn't contradict these things. Hence, Al-Ghazali further states that another thing might be stated. They might bring another hadith. It may be said, if God reveals himself to a thing, it submits to him. It submits itself to him, thereby proving that the eclipse is submission by reason of revelation and not by what the philosophers have said. Al-Ghazali answers this as well. He states, first of all, that this transmission or this narration is not sound. Okay? Then he further ahead mentions that even though the transmission, if it were sound, it would be necessary to interpret it in a way that is within the bounds of the Arabic language, and it does not contradict with the core principles of the religion. Like I said, Al-Ghazali is a proper Ash'ari, and he does hold to the Ash'ari understanding of interpretation and reinterpretation and their principles. We are not going to dive into that, but here we can clearly see Al-Ghazali affirming that. Then he states that because it is clear that these things do not contradict truth, and Islam cannot contradict the truth because Islam is true itself. So even if there is a narration that is in contradiction with what is observational, let's say just for the sake of argument, even if it was contradictory or apparently contradictory, that's what we should be saying, the one who actually knows Islam will understand its true meaning, and hence he will explain and interpret it as such. And he also mentions that if someone claims that this is in contradiction with Islam, this is what the atheist want. The atheist rejoices. Thus, the atheist path for refuting religion becomes easy if the likes of the above argument for defending religion are rendered a condition for its truth. Simple as that. So such people actually make the path to atheism and irreligiosity and leaving Islam easy. And we see that even today. Some people will hold on to something which has no basis in Islam and will say this is the truth. Even though I would like to make this clear that holding such opinions are within the scope of Islam and what would be considered Sunni Islam. And I don't believe so Al-Ghazali would go against this notion that, for example, believing in a flat earth would be within the fold of Sunni Islam or orthodoxy. But claiming that any other opinion is false and heretical is not. Okay, so we went on a bit of a tangent there. This is because, then he further ahead goes, this is because the inquiry at issues about the world is whether it's originated in time or is it eternal. So Al-Ghazali is saying that the reason that these issues are a non-problem, the issues about how the eclipse happened, or basically natural sciences, he would say, because the real matter is metaphysical in nature. The real matter is about modality. It is about ontology. It is about believing that the world is contingent and is temporal. Meaning, the real argument is the world dependent on God or independent on God? Is it contingent or is it necessary? Is it eternal or is it occurrent? This is the real debate. The debate about, okay, then the earth, if it is contingent, how is it? Is it spherical? Is it flat? Is it hexagonal? These are secondary debates. And Al-Ghazali literally mentions this. He states, moreover, once its temporality or temporal origination established, it makes no difference whether it is a sphere, a simple body, an octagon, or a hexagon. It makes no difference whether the highest heavens and what is beneath are 13 layers. For the relation of the inquiry in this matter is to the inquiry into the divine matters is similar to the relation of looking at the number of layers of the onion or the numbers of seed in a pomegranate. Meaning that what is really intended and what we really want is someone to believe in the whole universe being dependent on God. Meaning, if someone believes that the earth is flat or the earth is spherical, as long as he believes that it is completely and utterly dependent on God, then it is not a creedal issue. But when they state that it is not dependent or it is eternal, then it starts to become a creedal issue.